Hey guys, this is Kathy Newton. I'm coming to you on a Monday. This is my very first YouTube video other than the introduction video, so I'm super excited. Hope that if you have any questions, you leave them in the comments section. Please try to be kind, and I will try to get to all of your questions right now. I think it's going to be possible for me to do that since my channel is pretty new right now. I think we'll probably get to a point in time where it's not possible. But right now I probably can answer questions and I'd love to have them. Tonight, I'm going to start with we're going to be reading through a little booklet that I made. This is more of not a hard copy, but this is a booklet that was written by myself, mostly with contributions from several other women who were in a trauma recovery group that I was running way back in 2007. And it really has some nice basics. It's really a phase 1 trauma tool to assist people who are trying to recover from childhood trauma. And it looks like I'm going to have a kitty cat in my video. So the back cover says, using language that's easy to understand, this handbook will help any survivor identify triggers that are causing emotional flashbacks. They will become more aware of when, where, and why they regress, and will be able to manage these emotional storms with increased awareness and regulation that will allow them to stay big in their lives and relationships. So the kitty cat is rocking my camera around. Anyway, I'm going to take my time and get through this booklet. We're going to start, and we're just going to read the first part of it. And once we get through the book, I'm going to go back and I'm going to comb through every single section and expound on it a little bit more and really get into the nuts and bolts of some phase 1 work for trauma recovery. At the end of this video, I'm going to have maybe a 5-minute blurb for people that are Christians, just some scriptures that I thought were helpful and meaningful in terms of staying big. This is a segment of the Therapy Rocks channel that I call Staying Big. And so for the next several weeks, we will be working on phase 1 tools to help us stay big. Hope you can join me. So the name of the book is, and again, this is a hard copy of the book, and this is more of a soft copy version. And they're two very different versions, but they both say exactly the same thing. So we're going to go through this one because it's a little bit more playful and colorful. So I'm trying to get that glare out of there. The upset that comes with little. A handbook for trauma survivors struggling with spontaneous age regression. All right, we're going to read the introduction. And again, this book started back in 2007, and it's finally, it's been resurrected and improved. So introduction, there's a scripture right at the beginning. Let the little children come unto me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. In my role of therapist, I was driving my car after a particularly difficult day in court when I suddenly realized I was quite regressed and emotional. I hadn't noticed myself feeling triggered while in the courtroom, but I managed to hold it together until I got into my vehicle. I kept trying to pull out of the regression and accompanying emotions by breathing, praying, and trying to label what I was feeling. Fear, intimidation, shame, terror, and just plain upset came to mind. But the one that fit best for the recently emerged 3-year-old part of me was upset. The next words that tumbled out were, the upset that comes with little. Then she was gone, quickly replaced with the calm, cool, and very confident 41-year-old therapist. I proceeded home and was able to be a mature, loving mom to my son for the rest of the day. As I continued to ponder the scene in the courthouse, I was disturbed on one hand that I could so rapidly regress to that level, but on the other hand, I was in awe of the child part's ability to trust me enough to show me how she felt. I was careful about the thoughts I was having toward the child part within, particularly shaming ones, and I tried to be extremely gentle and caring with myself for the rest of the day. This was not easy. When the court incident was 3 days old and my grown-up was back in the driver's seat, one thing remained to remind me that I was not hallucinating: the desire to tell other survivors about this phenomenon in language that the child inside of them could understand. Please join me on this journey. It has instructions in the first few pages on how to use this book. So we're going to skip over that and we're going to read a couple of quotes from survivors. It shows quotes from survivors. These quotes are from women who are in my trauma group. They talk about what it feels like to have an episode of spontaneous age regression, which is also called emotional flashback. It hurts all over. I can barely breathe. I hate myself. I never do anything right or follow through with anything. I'm stupid, and anything good in my life I ruin. My heart hurts. There's nothing good about me deep down inside. I can't even keep myself looking good. Why am I even on this earth? Why can't God take me away? I'm a terrible mother, wife, and daughter. I screw up everything that's remotely good in my life. I don't want to die, but I don't want to hurt anymore. If I can't keep my marriage together, I don't know what to do. I'm fat and ugly, and I screw up my whole life forever. No one loves me ever. I can never be good enough for anyone to love me. I have no one around, and I belong to no one. And that quote was from Terry, and that's what it felt like to her to be in the middle of an emotional flashback or an episode of spontaneous age regression. Getting little. This is the next page is on getting little, next few pages. And again, getting little is the word that I use for describing what it feels like when you have an episode of spontaneous age regression or emotional flashback. This occurs when a survivor feels suddenly threatened by a trigger or cue that resembles some aspect of their original trauma. Spontaneous age regression is one form of what treatment providers refer to as an emotional flashback. Flashbacks are dissociative processes and may take the form of pictures, sounds, smells, body sensations, feelings, or numbness. Many times there's no actual visual or auditory memory. When the body gets triggered by some aspect of the original trauma or traumas, it responds physiologically by releasing a variety of hormones and chemicals that lead to the feeling of getting little. Though the body reaction of getting little is part of our normal defense system, the timing's out of whack. The part of us that feels little does not realize the trauma is over and reacts as if it's still truly in danger. The individual forgets that they have an adult part available to them for help. The survivor's over or under reaction can take many different forms and looks confusing to anyone that is watching or interacting with the individual at the time because they don't realize that they're interacting with child parts. Child parts. There's pictures of children. I don't know if you can see that. Child parts can be angry, hostile, rageful, vengeful, violent, passive-aggressive, sweet, dependent, fearful, depressed, sad, codependent, shut down, anxious, terrified, submissive, boundaryless, desperate, ashamed, happy, joyful, playful, silly, and excited. They really are the most precious parts of ourselves, but they've been in charge of protecting themselves and each other for so long that many have forgotten how to play and heal. These parts can be terrified of connection and intimacy in relationships because they have never felt safe. As a result, most child parts stay quite isolated, fearful, and lonely. When spontaneous age regression happens, the younger parts of the personality are left in charge of running the show. Little parts can be ego states or action systems in the psyche that feel very young. They can overreact and are very sensitive to rejection and abandonment. When a child has been traumatized repeatedly at a young age, they cannot get their security needs met adequately. They have no capacity to regulate themselves or their emotions due to their neglect and abuse. As a result of this deprivation, the child part is not able to grow and develop normally. As a result, these younger parts are frozen in time outside of consciousness, while the leftover part of the personality continues on with everyday life. These younger, less developed parts of the personality then continue to surface whenever they feel threatened. These periods of regression can last anywhere from 3 to 30 hours and are the most intense period of suffering for every survivor. Pete Walker, in his book entitled From Surviving to Thriving, calls this the abandonment melange. So we're going to stop there for today. I don't want these videos to be super long. We're going to just go back and summarize what we figured out so far. So we heard a quote from a survivor about her episode of spontaneous age regression, or getting little, or emotional flashback. We got a chance to see what it felt like for her. We got a chance to talk a little bit about getting little and why that occurs and what causes it. And then we got a chance to talk about child parts. Okay, so basically, in summary, people who are childhood trauma survivors oftentimes feel like they're going crazy. They're afraid to tell other people about what's happening to them because they can be functioning like an adult one minute and then literally get triggered, and sometimes not even know why they get triggered, and end up regressing into a space where they aren't acting like an adult anymore. And sometimes they can get triggered into a space where they get really angry and, become this angry adolescent. Or sometimes they get really scared and fearful of abandonment or rejection, and they get really little emotionally to where they begin to act more like a child. And so you can imagine what your life would be like if you're constantly regressing, because one minute you're walking around like the introduction that I wrote about in my own life, where, I was walking around like a 41-year-old, a 40-year-old competent therapist and mother and professional. And the next minute I found myself feeling like I was about 3 years old. And thank goodness I could get out of that situation, but not before I regressed, and started sobbing like a 3-year-old. And I don't know about you, but I can tell when somebody's crying the tears of a child versus the tears of an adult. And the difference if you think about it. So, those kind of episodes can get in the way for us. They can get in the way for us professionally. They can get in the way for us personally and mostly in relationships. And, without relationships in life, we can't grow and we can't heal. And without relationships in life, there's really no true joy. So I know every survivor that I've worked with, and I know myself personally, that one of the things I used to always say to myself back in the day was, I am so good at what I do. I am such a great professional. I am so intelligent. I've come such a long way. But the only thing I can't figure out is this relationship thing. What is wrong with me? And it used to really make me feel like I just was a failure in that area, and I wasn't sure how it was going to get any better unless I tried harder. And, trying harder didn't help. Because I fell into the same patterns over and over again. So this is the beginning of a journey of recovery that hopefully will help you figure some of these things out intellectually, and then you can take it to your therapist or your support person, and they can help you work through it emotionally, because the two go together. It's really important to load this information on the hard drive. That's what I call it. But then it's really just as important to work it through in relationship. And I'll be repeating some of this stuff over and over again. But that's all I want to say for today. Thanks for joining me. And for anybody who is a Christian who wants to hang around for just a few minutes, I've got a couple verses I want to share. If you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine. Nobody's going to get offended. We're just glad you showed up today. And we hope that you'll come back next Monday for the next video. Okay, thanks. So I was at a spiritual disciplines retreat this weekend. Oh, that's what I thought before I went anyway. I was like, I can't believe I signed up for this. Anyway, I was really glad I went because, spiritual discipline is really nothing more than the process of sanctification that the Bible talks about, that Christians always talk about, which is nothing more than the process of recovery from trauma, for people who've been traumatized. It is the process of growing up. Christians have a little extra supernatural help with that because we have the help from the Holy Spirit to help us grow. Because some of this stuff that's wrong inside of us that's been broken, and some of our wounded parts can only be healed supernaturally. You know, we can try and spin our wheels, but without some of that supernatural, I call it magic dust from God, it takes a lot longer to heal some of the things than if you're a Christian. So some of the verses that stuck out to me when he talked about growing up, he talked a lot about, this guy's name was David Roadcup, and he was phenomenal. I wanted him to be my daddy. He had this gray hair, and he was about 70 years old, and he was so soft-spoken, and I thought, oh. Anyway, he was talking about basically growing up, and he kept saying we need to grow up. So some of the things that he said, I just wanted to, he talked about spiritual maturity. We need to grow up in all aspects of our life. And he said, God is so concerned about every detail of your life, and that serving God is not following a lot of legalistic rules. And he talked about the reality of the interior life, and that is your inner life, and that's where your child parts live. What lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. And that was Ralph Waldo Emerson. And then Dallas Willard said, the most important thing in your life is not what you do, it's who you become. That's what you'll take into eternity. You are an unceasing spiritual being with an eternal destiny in God's great universe. And he said the inner world must be intentionally nurtured. Our public worlds are filled with a seeming infinity of demands upon our time, our loyalties, our money, and our energies. And because these public worlds of ours are so visible, so real, we have to struggle to ignore all their seductions and demands. They scream for our attention and action. The result is that our private world is often cheated and neglected because it does not shout so loudly. It can be effectively ignored for large periods of time before it gives way to sinkhole-like cave-ins. Basically, he was just saying that we need to pay attention to our inner lives. We need to take the time for recovery or sanctification, whatever you want to call it. It is not a magic pill. If any therapist gets online and tells you that healing, they've got the magic pill to healing, they're not telling you the truth. I've been a therapist for 37 years. There is no magic pill. There's only a magic process. And that process takes time, and it takes devotion, and it takes hard work. And you know you can do that because you've been surviving all these years, so you know you are not afraid of hard work. We just have to get people pointed in the right direction so they stop spinning their wheels. A relationship, finding the right relationship is not the answer. So finding the right recovery program is the answer. Plugging into that program, staying plugged in, and showing up every single day to work your program of recovery. And next time we'll talk a little bit more about what that might look like for you, and I can share what I do, although mine's not perfect. So anyway, ladies and men, I'm glad you could join me today. God bless you in your recovery. Please leave any questions or comments in the video. Also, I wanted to let you know I'm very new at this. So I don't want to pile onto myself a bunch of rules and regulations of how and when to do videos because that'll stress me out, and that's kept me from doing videos in the past. So I am learning as I go, and I may make some mistakes along the way. So I'm just letting you know that in advance. Thanks, and have a great day.